So you just got your first mountain bike. Now what? Well, you're in luck, because in this video, we're gonna get you up to speed with everything you need to know about your new bike, getting out there on the trail, and most importantly, having fun. Welcome back to Joy of Bike. I'm Mike, and in today's video, I'm joined by Chase Willie, and today we're gonna teach you how to get out on the trail safely.
Okay, so let's start off by identifying a few of the key things that we need to get started. And well, the first one is a bike. You know, we have some pretty nice full suspension bikes here, but you don't need much to get started. You can go get an entry-level bike from your local bike shop and have just as much fun.
Now that we've got our bike, the next thing that we want to make sure we have on our bike is flat pedals. For your first few rides, you don't want to be clipped in. In fact, I would advise against putting clip pedals on your bike until you're at least a year into riding the trail comfortably.
Another key piece of equipment that we want to make sure that we have is a nice helmet that fits us appropriately.
And last but not least, we want to make sure we're prepared when we're out there on the trail. So we want to make sure we're carrying water with us. This can come in the form of a water bottle that's attached to our bike through a bottle cage, or a pack that we wear on our back that has a bladder. The other thing we want to make sure we're carrying if we don't have a backpack on is a hip pack. This is my personal favorite one. I can link it down below if you're looking for one, but I like to keep all my snacks, my tools, and all those good things in my hip pack.
Now that we've identified the things that we need to get started, let's go over what we're going to cover in this video. We're going to start by getting to know our bike and how to operate all of the little features on it.
Next up, we're going to cover trail awareness and navigation before we head out on the ride.
Next, we're going to talk about how to properly prepare for that ride.
And last but not least, we're going to get out there for our first ride. So let's get to know our bike. We're gonna cover a few basics here that are gonna help us tackle our first ride with confidence. One of my favorite parts about riding mountain bikes is getting to experience incredible views, especially the ones at the top. Understanding how to utilize our bike's gears will greatly enhance the experience of getting to the top of those mountains. Now that we're talking about climbing to those epic views, let's talk about what gear we wanna be in when doing that. Being in our easiest gear, which is going to be on the top end of our cassette, that's gonna help us get to the top of these climbs with ease. Once we've reached the top of our climb and got to experience those beautiful mountain views, it's time to start descending, which means gravity is now on our side. So as we start descending, we're gonna shift to the lower end of our cassette, which is gonna make our pedals as efficient as possible. With all that being said, it's really important to understand how your particular bike shifts. So we suggest going out into the street in front of your house or an empty parking lot to really get a grasp of how you're gonna shift up and down, because this is gonna be a skill you're using frequently when out on the trail.
So now that we know how to shift our bike and gain a little bit of speed, we need to know how to stop as well. And that's where the brakes are gonna come into play. If you're watching this video based in the US, it's pretty safe to assume that your new bike comes with the front brake on the left hand and the back brake on the right hand, but this can switch based on where you are. So before you get on that bike, give it a nice little rock back and forth and see which brake corresponds with which wheel. Now, when it comes to braking, it's best practice to just use your pointer fingers and leave them resting on the brake levers. It's pretty common for beginners to use 2 fingers for the brakes, but we really want to refrain from doing that and just keep our pointer fingers on the brake levers. You're going to get plenty control over your brakes with just the pointer fingers, and it leaves all of the other fingers to control the rest of the bike. When it comes to actually applying our brakes, let's think about how we apply the brakes in our car. Usually in the car, we don't want to just slam on the brakes because yourself and everything else in your car is going to fly forward. Same thing would happen on the bike if you just slam on the brakes. We want to make sure that we're easing onto the brakes and slowly applying a little bit more pressure to stop at our desired end goal. Play around with this a little bit and get familiar with your brakes responsiveness in an empty driveway or a parking lot or a street before you go and hit the trail. We can pull our brake levers just a little bit even when we're off the bike until we feel our brake pads make contact with our rotors. This is usually a pretty good place to start for how hard you want to pull the brakes. You'll start to feel your bike slow down a little bit without shifting your body weight at all. And then you can start applying a little bit more pressure as you learn how to adapt your body weight accordingly. Last thing when it comes to braking, When you're a beginner, let's try to apply about 50-50 braking in the front and the rear. We don't want to do all of our braking with the back wheel because we'll just skid out. We don't want to do all of the braking with our front wheel because that might lose traction on the front end or kick us over the handlebars. So a 50-50 balance between front and back is going to be a really safe bet. There are more advanced braking techniques that we would like to get into in the future. So if that's something that you're interested in, let us know down below.
Now, if you're unfamiliar with a dropper post, these things are absolutely rad and super easy to use. Usually activated by a toggle found on the left-hand side of the handlebar. All you need to do is push the toggle in, add some weight to the post, let go of the toggle, and your seat stays down, which will give you a ton more confidence when it comes to descending any trail. And then when it comes to raising our post, the same thing applies. We unweight the post and just push that toggle back in until it reaches the desired height, and we continue on climbing. Now, if the dropper post is something that's new to you, spend some time out in the street getting to know how this thing works. Learn how to put it down and put it up at a moment's notice to help you out there on the trail. When it comes to climbing with the dropper post, we want the post fully actuated in its upward position. This will ensure that we're getting full pedal strokes and putting all of our power into the ground when we're going up the hill. Now, as you start getting more comfortable on the mountain bike and progressing through trails, something that's really cool about these dropper posts is that you can put them basically at any height, and this will really help you get through climbing technical rock garden sections or areas that there are obstacles in the way. This is where the dropper post really comes in handy. When we start descending, we can drop this thing all the way down, which will allow us to navigate around the cockpit of the bike freely, and it will greatly aid you when it comes to encountering obstacles like rocks or roots out on the trail. With all that being said, the dropper post will quickly become your best friend while out there on the trail. You'll find yourself raising and lowering this thing super often as you navigate around a trail, and that's okay. That's exactly what it's designed to do.
The last thing that we're gonna check before we head out on our ride is our tire pressure. This is something that we recommend checking before every single ride. We definitely do it before every single ride. And a good place to start if you're a beginner is about 30 PSI in the front and rear tires. As you start to get more comfortable and have more hours on the bike, you can start playing around with this PSI and find what feels right for you. Personally, I run 28 PSI in the front tire and 30 PSI in the back tire. If you are a more experienced rider, we know that this is something that can be kind of fun and a little personal, so let us know in the comments down below what PSI you run front and rear, and help somebody else that is new discover the right PSI for them. There are a ton of really good resources for you to find the perfect trail for you to start on. One of the easiest ways is to just type into Google your location plus beginner or easy mountain bike trail and see what pops up. Usually you want to be looking for trails that are marked with green or beginner markings, and those are going to be a pretty solid bet for you to start.
As a side note, we also want to be really observant of trail markings, not only when we're researching the trails, but when we're out on the trails as well. We don't want to make a wrong turn and end up lost, or go up a trail that is descending only, or potentially go to a trail that is no bikes at all.
Yeah, we really want to make sure that these trails stay accessible to mountain bikes, and the best way to do that is just to follow the sign markings and making sure you're riding where you're allowed to and you're not riding where you're not supposed to.
As easy as it may be to jump online to try and find a trail that may be best suited to us, sometimes the internet can lead us astray and we end up getting out there and being on a trail that may be a little above our pay grade, which is why one of our favorite ways to identify trails that are best suited to us and our skill level is to go and visit your local bike shop.
What's going on,
dude?
What can I do for you?
I'm going out for my first mountain bike ride ever, and I'm curious if you can point me in the right direction.
You're new to dirt?
New to dirt.
So, generally for people's first ever rides, we shoot them to a place called Boulder Valley Ranch.
Okay.
It's about halfway in between here and Boulder. It's super tame. You might actually find it boring, but it's a great place to sort of get started and feel your way around. There are some really tame single tracks there, starter territory. This is all just based on the kind of things that I hear and the feedback I get in the shop.
Sure.
Very first timers, that's kind of where I like to send them.
Okay.
So we have a trail in town here called Picture Rock that a lot of people like hear it's a good novice trail. But the feedback we get on it, like it's actually not that easy of a trail. It has some really mellow sections. It's not very steep, but it has parts that are really rocky and pedal snags and things like that. Antelope Trail at Hall is significantly less flat, but it's also pretty tame.
Okay.
So that could be something really challenging for you, but once you turn around, it's all downhill.
Sure.
Right, so that's kind of the stages of where we like to send people, see how things go at Boulder Valley Ranch, and then maybe try Picture Rock.
Cool, man. Well, we'll definitely go check out those trails you suggested, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. There's no shame in walking.
I
like to tell
that,
people
man.
you're not mountain biking unless you're hiking.
I like that, dude. Yeah, we're gonna get out there and have some fun. Thank you so much.
The goal is to put a smile on your face, brother.
Heck yeah. Cheers, dude.
Yeah, man. Thanks, you guys. Have fun out there.
Now that we've got our trail picked out, the next important part is making sure that we're prepared for the ride. One of the most key parts of figuring out where we're going to ride is understanding how long the trail is and how long we expect to be out there so we can prepare adequately with food and water to make sure we're staying safe out there on the trail. Along with being prepared by having enough food and water for being out on the trail, we also want to make sure we're prepared for any possible mechanicals. By that, I mean maybe getting a flat tire if you bend your derailleur. So the things that are going to help us out there in those situations is something like a nice multi-tool, having a tube to throw in your tire, a CO2 cartridge to inflate that tube, or a hand pump. These are all things that you can pick up at your local bike shop, but if you don't have a bike shop near you, check down in the description below and I've put some of my favorite pieces to repair my bike out there on the trail. Now, if you'd like us to go into a little bit more detail about the mechanicals you can run into on the trail and how you can repair those, let us know down in the comments. But now we're gonna head out and get out there for a ride. And just like that, we're at the trail for our first mountain bike ride. But before we head out on the trail, let's quickly touch on trail etiquette.
Understanding proper trail etiquette is integral to making sure that you and everybody else out on the trail are safe and having fun and playing together nicely.
So as a general rule of thumb, when we're out on the trail, we're going to yield to hikers and equestrians all the time. If you're on a bike, we yield to them no matter what. Now, if you come across another rider while out on the trail, you're gonna yield to that other rider when they are climbing up towards you as you're descending.
When you do yield to other people to let them pass, you can do something very similar to what I'm doing here. My tires are still on the trail. I don't wanna make this single track any wider, but I'm leading my bike off of the trail so my bars are out of the way so people can get by safely. When people are passing, just make sure you give them a little stoke, give them a little love. Tell them that they're looking good in the section, or, you know, wish them a good ride or a good day or whatever. The more positive energy you give out to other people on the trail, the more positive energy you're gonna receive back, and I promise you, that's gonna make the world of a difference in your riding.
Aw, thanks, dude.
Yeah, of course, man. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too. Enjoy. Listen, climbing can be really tricky, so go at your own pace, take breaks, and be sure to not get over fatigued. One of the most important things with climbing is to be easy on yourself. You're not gonna climb over everything the first time you're out on the trail. Getting off the bike and walking is perfectly okay.
As tricky as climbing can be, here are a few tips that will make it a little bit smoother for you. Tip number one is to just keep your eyes up. Your bike is gonna go wherever your eyes are gonna go. So we wanna make sure our eyes are pointed up the trail and identifying potential obstacles and how to navigate around them smoothly. We also wanna make sure that we're keeping our core tight to help with our balance on the bike as we're rolling up, spinning our pedal strokes in a really smooth, efficient manner and in an appropriate gear. And keeping our arms at a pretty gentle bend. We don't want to lock our arms out ever. We want to make sure that they're just at a nice, comfortable, gentle bend as we're going up. Speaking of our arms, the same thing applies to going down or on flats. We want to make sure that we're never locking out and fully upright. We want to keep a gentle bend in our arms, and same thing with our legs, a gentle bend in our legs. These act as our main works of suspension. So these are what's gonna adapt to the trail as we hit little unexpected bumps and rollers along the way. Another key piece, especially when going down, is we wanna get off of the saddle, stand up. This is how we're gonna keep that gentle bend in our legs. If we're sitting down, it's all the bike that's reacting to the trail, and it's gonna buck us around in a lot of ways that we don't wanna happen. So make sure you're standing up, gentle bend in the legs and arms, and that's what's gonna help you adapt to the trail appropriately. Always pay attention to where your pedals and cranks are. We wanna make sure that they're riding definitely on the downhills, and a lot of cases when we're not pedaling on the uphills, make sure they're parallel with the ground. If they're perpendicular with the ground, we run the risk of doing exactly this, clipping our pedals on unexpected rocks along the trail. That's gonna send you going in a bunch of different ways that you don't want to happen. So best way to avoid that is by keeping your pedals level.
Now that we're descending the trail, let's talk about speed. Only go as fast as you're comfortable going. And remember, when we're going down the trail, stopping is far different than it's going to be when we're on a flat surface. Speed is a byproduct of skill. We develop skill over time, so take it easy on your first ride. And since we're on the subject of taking it easy, the same thing should be applied to technical sections, whether you're climbing or descending on the trail. It's okay to get off the bike and walk. In fact, we do it all the time if we approach a section that we're not sure about. Being able to ride another day and not end up injured is the goal. Before we go, I want to talk about something that may be a little bit of a touchy subject, and that's falling. Unfortunately, with this sport, you are gonna fall. That's just kind of the nature of the beast. It's not if, it's when. The best thing we can do when it comes to falling is analyzing our mistakes and trying to figure out what happened and applying a fix so we don't do it again. A lot of falls occur, especially when you're a beginner, when you're tired. So taking a break and resting is of the utmost importance to avoid those early stage crashes. And keep in mind, getting out on those first few rides can be hard and it can be intimidating. But as long as you're taking the measures that we've discussed in this video, you're going to be riding trails with confidence and skills in no time. Practice makes a big difference. So take your time, enjoy the ride, and have fun. And last but not least, I want to talk about developing bike skills. This is something that is a journey. It does not happen overnight. I've been riding for a majority of my life now, and I'm still learning new things. In fact, that's one of the coolest things about riding bikes. You're gonna always be learning. So from the beginner stages, give yourself a little bit of grace as you're going over hard obstacles, climbing hard hills. This stuff is hard, but it's gonna get easier with a little bit of practice. I promise you that. All right, we're at that point in the video now. It's time to wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us today. We had an absolute blast. If you enjoyed this video, but maybe it doesn't apply to you because you are an experienced rider, send it over to a friend who maybe is just getting into riding so they can get out and enjoy the trails with you. If you liked this video, cruise down and hit that like button. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell so you don't miss videos like this in the future. And with all that being said, I'm gonna go have a little bit of fun on the trail myself. Happy trails, yo.
Oh, I just realized that I need to catch him. Okay, before we leave, click right here if you want to learn how to gain a little bit more speed without pedaling, technique called pumping. Click right here if you want to learn how to bunny hop. We got 2 of those fundamental skills videos on the channel right now. Till next time, love you guys. Thank you for being here. Yeah.